So this discussion is near and dear to my heart. On behalf of myself and the maker of RADICAVA ORS, which is hosting this webinar for the ALS community today, I am thrilled to have you with us for the presentation. We hope the personal insights about building support shared today will guide you as you navigate that aspect of your own ALS journey. During the next hour, we'll be hearing from a husband and wife team in the ALS community. They're amazing. You're going to love them. David, who is living with ALS, and his wife and care partner, Linda. They'll be sharing information learned from their own personal journeys about understanding ALS, their limitations, learning to ask for help. I know that was a hard one for us, and knowing where to turn for resources. These are all key elements when building your own personal support system for your journey with ALS. Also, stay tuned for the Q&A after the main presentation, where we will do our best to address as many questions as we can about the information shared today. Throughout the presentation, we'll encourage you to submit any questions that you have. If you're viewing on desktop, you can enter a question at any time in the black box on your screen. On mobile, simply click the question mark icon at the bottom of your screen. Desktop users can find helpful resources on the right side of the screen, and mobile users can find them by selecting the pay-per-click icon. You can also use the reaction feature to show your support of our speakers. Remember, these are personal experiences and nothing here that's discussed is medical advice. Please talk to your doctor before making any treatment decisions, and thank you. First, a few disclosures regarding our discussion. As mentioned, today's webinar is brought to you by RADICAVA ORS, and the speakers, including myself, are being compensated by Tanabe Pharma America. Because RADICAVA ORS is sponsoring this presentation, we do need to cover our brief information, and please note that full important safety information for RADICAVA ORS will be displayed at the end of this presentation after our Q&A and can be found in the helpful resource section. All right, so RADICAVA is indicated for the treatment of ALS, which we know, and it is contraindicated in patients with history of hypersensitivity to edaravone, the active ingredient, or any of the inactive ingredients. Hypersensitivity reactions and anaphylactic reactions have occurred. Most common side effects include bruising, problems walking, and headache. Now for the good part. Let's get to introductions. So starting with you, David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So glad to have you here, Jodi, and welcome to everybody who's listening in. My name is David Busek. I'm 62 years old, and I grew up in Arizona, but I've been living in the San Francisco Bay Area since finishing my master's program in 1987. I met my wife, Linda, after I moved here, and she had also moved here shortly before. I've worked primarily in technology, but also in teaching over the years, and I retired in 2019, which was also when I got my ALS diagnosis. Now, in my retirement, I do a lot of writing. I recently published a book about traveling to Paris, and I'm currently working on a young adult novel about a kid in the foster care system, which is something I used to be involved in as a volunteer. I'm also on the board of a local ALS nonprofit that covers most of California and all of Hawaii. And I trained as an ALS research ambassador through an academic research consortium based in New England that has over 100 member centers committed to ALS research. There, I've also learned how to read and interpret scientific papers and translate them as best I can into lay language for myself and other people to be able to understand them better. I've also been a patient fellow at an international symposium for ALS, which I've done for 2 years, and I've attended international alliance meetings and different technical presentations about ALS. That feels especially important to me now, which is to be able to bring my personal experiences directly to the people who are working in the ALS disease space because they might not get the chance to interact with many folks who are living with ALS. We've even been able to give a couple of presentations to the ALS communities on traveling with ALS, with a wheelchair, and with a disability.
Wow, that's impressive. So you've certainly been so busy, and I thank you and I welcome you. And how about you, Linda?
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Linda, and as you've heard, I'm David's wife. And since his ALS diagnosis, I've become his caregiver or care partner as well. I have a bit of an unusual background when it comes to my new role. I used to work as a recreational therapist, so I actually have a lot of experience working in hospitals and with people who may have had a head injury or stroke or spinal cord injury. So that means I've worked with wheelchairs and communication devices. In that role, I also spoke to their partners about self-care and finding the support the partners or caregivers needed. So none of that was especially new to me when I found myself in a similar position. But I gotta say, when it hit me, it's still incredibly hard. I also started a course at San Jose State University and taught for years and years about the concept of creating a meaningful life. This idea that no matter what happens in life, it's a roller coaster, and it isn't what happens, but how you respond, how we take each and every day. Ironically, in this course, we read the story of Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom, about a mentee and his professor, and the professor has ALS. So before our journey, David and mine, with ALS ever began, I had read the story of someone's progression from beginning to end no less than 40 times. Isn't that kind of goosebumpy? Ugh. I've also done grief work with kids, with teens and adults, which has been exceedingly helpful when it comes to understanding my own feelings. All that is to say, I really feel like my entire life has led me to these moments, the new position of caring for David and being able to share my thoughts and insights with other people going through ALS.
I can really relate to all of that. We have so much in common. Wow, it's great to meet you, Linda. So welcome. And I love these pictures here. It sounds like you both have so much that you're able to share with us when it comes to finding support. So let's jump right in. My first question has to do with getting that ALS diagnosis. David, can you tell us a bit more about how that happened for you?
Sure. Originally, I had gone to see my doctor about symptoms like a stubbed toe and fatigue in 2016. Back then, they could tell that something was going on, but they didn't really know what it was. They told me to come back when things had changed, which I did in late 2018 or in early 2019. At first, I was diagnosed with primary lateral sclerosis, or PLS, and we got a bit involved in that community before it was actually confirmed later in the year that what I actually have is ALS.
Thanks for sharing that with us, David. It can certainly take some time to get that ALS diagnosis. Linda, you and I have been in the same boat where we're hearing about ALS as wives and partners. Can you walk me through how you were feeling at that time?
Whew, yeah. ALS came as a tremendous shock to me. David was so fit, and because he's not a complainer and he has such a slow form, thankfully, of ALS, I really was beyond stunned at the diagnosis. I think at the time, David's left brain kicked in and he was like, engineer, yeah, those symptoms match this diagnosis. Okay, which was validating for him. But for me, it came out of left field. Even though I knew it was a possibility by then, I was beyond shocked because it seemed so improbable. There was also, hard to describe this, but it was also this realization that in this partnership where we enjoy being good listeners and supporting each other, for years, my husband had been having symptoms of ALS, and I had missed it entirely. I felt that at worst, I had been dismissive, and at best, I'd let him deal with this on his own because I thought it basically came down to aging. He stubbed his toe, right? As a result, at diagnosis, I became hyper vigilant about symptoms and caring for him. I was not going to miss anything on David's journey. I was going to be partner of the year and the good wife, as I like to describe that painful year of vigilance.
Yeah, that first year was really a struggle for you. And it was a big change to our dynamic. And I wasn't really prepared for that either.
It's true. As unprepared as I was for your diagnosis, I think that you were pretty unprepared to have your wife following you around every minute and make sure you were breathing and you weren't choking. And I just had to watch you every second.
Yeah, well, the truth is that that's a very normal feeling for those transitions, right? And the idea of hypervigilance and not missing any part of the journey brings us truly to the crux of this discussion, which is building our support networks, both as someone living with ALS and someone as a care partner or caregiver, whichever term you prefer to use. So ALS, as we know, all of us, is not a journey that anyone can or should embark on alone. It's so important to have people and resources to lean on. That kind of support can come in many different forms for many different needs. So let's talk first about medical support. David, what kind of support have you been offered by your care team?
So I have a quarterly ALS clinic visit where all of the people who are involved with my ALS care work together as a team for my appointments, which I think is a really good model. On top of that, I see an ALS specialist at UC San Francisco in their neurology department. Together, they've told me what treatments are available and what my insurance is able to cover. So I started on RADICAVA ORS in October of 2023. And even though it's really hard for me to tell if it's slowing my progression, my feeling is that as long as I'm not having negative side effects, then I'm good with that. I do like to listen to what they all have to say and take the balance of what I hear from them to make any decisions. They really are a core part of our support network. I'm also in the fortunate position of having a slow enough moving case that I didn't really feel like I needed much additional support when I was first diagnosed. Having said that, there was at time of diagnosis a member of the ALS network at my clinic, and they got me enrolled in the local ALS support organization. I didn't really know why back then, but I'm grateful now for having that. As things have progressed, I've really started to reach out and connect with the people in the organization for advice and help with different things. And as my need changes, as my needs change, there are certain things that have become more important, such as resources like palliative care, which aims to provide comfort and improve quality of life for people with serious illnesses and their families. We have access to that and other resources that support both Linda and me as things progress.
Speaking of quality of life, I've realized that a lot of my worries came back to that. What is going to happen? So we both became more proactive in terms of his medical needs. Let's face it, David is a fall risk. So together we set up systems so that David can be as strong and independent as he can be for as long as possible. We built ramps before he needed ramps. We got grab bars before he needed grab bars. David mentioned palliative care. That was me. I asked for palliative care and to speak to that team early on because I wanted to know what to expect coming later. And that was really helpful for me. Having that professional support is so important. You know what? this is our first rodeo. And for the professionals, it's not their first rodeo. So it's awesome having them on our team.
I think that's extremely well said. And I just have to say, I'm in awe of you both. Thank you.
Thanks.
So beyond getting professional support from your care team, I've certainly found that people in your community can also be a great resource to lean on while you're managing the effects and challenges of ALS. So Linda, what are some of the ways that you and David have leaned on your community?
Wow. In terms of diving into community, I don't think we did that much at the very beginning. Both of us had some anxiety, frankly, about seeing people who were farther along in the journey. That was just scary to us because David was doing pretty well just then. But David and I really are people who love to give back. So when the idea of doing an ALS walk came up, we wanted to start finding ways that we could be part of that community and feel like we were supporting others facing this huge challenge. That's when we became more comfortable getting involved.
And we've actually been to 3 walks now. The first one was in 2022. And since then, we've met many people who we've continued to interact with. It's also been great to learn from the companies who are at the walks, and at the same time to raise money that goes back into the ALS organizations to support the work that they all do.
Yeah, walks are always a great place to connect and to get information. But in terms of emotional support, what other community resources have you tried?
Support groups are a great place to start and may or may not need to be specific to ALS. For example, the groups that I gravitate to for support are sometimes spiritual or related to the hobbies that I enjoy. I did try a few ALS-specific support groups for caregivers in the beginning. For me, those groups weren't as helpful as I had hoped because of my work background. But I would definitely recommend these to people who may not be as familiar with caregiving, self-care, etc. As a person who facilitates groups on grief and on creating a meaningful life, frankly, when I was in a group, it was hard to get out of the headspace of being the facilitator, and it was hard to just participate. The first ALS groups I tried didn't work out, which isn't to say that they can't be helpful for others or can't be helpful for me at another time. So what ended up working better for me were to join some groups that were not specific, as I said. I'm involved in a lot of different art forms. I go on retreats. I'm involved in spiritual communities and even scrapbook and journaling and collage and writing. We do that together, a writing community. Those are the types of groups that have been super helpful for me, really sustaining.
It's a really great point. What works for you, right? You have to do what works for you. So, and what works for someone else may not be the right fit for you. And the important thing is you don't want to be deterred from that first experience if it doesn't feel right. Everyone's ALS journey is different. The key, what's really essential is that you get the support. So thanks for that reminder.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're not going to do this alone, and you can't do it alone, and it's really not healthy to do it alone. So don't be afraid to try things out. Join the clubs, join the chat groups and the therapy sessions. Some of them are going to stick and work for you and others aren't. So stick with the ones that work and let the other ones go. But remember them because, as Linda mentioned, they may be what you need down the road.
Excellent point. So are there any other ways that you've leaned in on your community that you have found really helpful?
Oh gosh, Jodi, let me count the ways. Over the years, we've reached out for help. Absolutely. For example, I've never been an enthusiastic cook, not the best cook, frankly. And suddenly, after 35 years of marriage, it's solely my job. It used to be something we shared, but now it's for me to do. That was a big change. But lucky us, our former next door neighbor was a professional chef, and she was eager to lend a hand. She asked what she could do, and we asked her if she would cook a meal once a week for us. And oh my gosh, it was delicious. And it really took a load off my shoulders. You may be surprised to learn how ready and willing your family, your friends, and even your neighbors may be. If they offer help, think creatively and say yes.
There are also lots of little things I used to do around the house, like taking care of the trash or blowing the leaves. So at different times, we've hired teenagers who don't cost as much as professionals to help us out with stuff.
Hiring help for a few hours a week has been phenomenal. That was a solution more for me. And it's a gift from David because he's not doing those things and I am. So being able to hand it off just decreased that level of feeling overwhelmed. Whew.
Yeah, that's a key word, right? Overwhelmed. Which brings me to our parents in the audience. It can be especially overwhelming when you're caring not only for a partner, but also for little ones. And that's where I was. I recall one really overwhelming morning, 3 a.m., when I was busy taking care of Kevin, who was living with ALS, and I decided to write an email to the people in my network asking for help. And it took a lot for me to do that, but I did. And basically I was saying, it's the beginning of summer, and I want to make sure that our daughter had a great summer. And could you invite her? If you take your kids to the park or to the library, could you please take her? Could you swing by? Because at that very moment, it was a reality to me that I wasn't going to be able to do that for her. And it was really nice to know that I could rely on friends and family to do that, and that, they would make her feel supported and give her a fun summer. And they loved it.
Wow, Jodi, that's a great concrete idea. Do you have any other ideas about how parents of children, young or older children, can get support when they're dealing with ALS?
Yeah, so I do this a lot as an advocate. When I talk to parents, I always ask about their child's school and, building that relationship with the school. I encourage sharing what is happening at home. Sending information about ALS brochures. Is it important to let your teachers know? Absolutely. Tell the teachers, the coaches, really any person who's working with your child. It's also important to share information as things change, right? We know that there are things that happen. So anyone who's working with your child and something major happens, there's a feeding tube now, someone's ventilated. This is really important. So make sure teachers, school counselors, coaches know the right terminology and also know how to help your children develop coping skills. The same thing goes for other types of community affiliations. A lot of times it's through churches or organizations like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. People want to help. They want to contribute and help, and they will. So I suggest that you start within your own, your really personal community.
It was surprising to me sometimes how willing people were to help. And because ALS isn't a solo disease, it's a community disease that helps people jump in. So I may be the one who has it, but everyone around me is experiencing it too, and they all want to help. So use that community.
It is so true. And sometimes it's a hard thing to do, but it makes a big difference. This brings us to the topic of getting support from your inner circle. Those friends and family who can help you with the day-to-day challenges of ALS. So let's be honest though, when someone asks that question, how can I help? That can be overwhelming. So Linda, how have you navigated delegating tasks to those who want to help?
Good question. Well, I have lists, and my lists have lists, and my lists have lists with people's names on them. I I can't keep it in my head. That's why I need help. So write it down and then ask. Jodi, if it's okay, I'd like to address something that's a little bit sideways of this question. I just want to put out there that sometimes people want to help, but they kind of kill us with kindness, with everybody giving us suggestions, opening doors, grabbing David and his walker. We can't think straight, and I'm frankly worried that they're going to topple him or something. So it's one thing when people ask, which is our topic, but another when they jump over us to help. And we're getting really good at asking for help when we need it. So I'd advise people to say, if people are jumping in sort of inappropriately, thank you so much. We know you're here for us. And I just want you to know that we'll ask, but right this second, David and I need to get the lay of the land, or David would say, I need to get the lay of the land. Then once we get settled, if we need something, we'll ask. But everybody trying to do everything for us when you're not ready can be frustrating and counterproductive. So allow yourself the time and space to figure out what you need and delegate when you are ready.
That's great advice. It's all about communicating effectively. So thank you for that. And so what does it look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my sister, who lives near us, has been a regular part of our clinic appointments and other appointments. So she's definitely in the middle of it. But she's not so involved in day-to-day care because she lives an hour away. But she's been a critical member of the support team that's behind me. That's something I would suggest for sure, is bring people to your appointments. There's just way too much information for any one person to absorb. So bring other people and then debrief afterwards and see what everyone understood or didn't understand, so you can include as many brains and ears and eyes in the process as you can, because there's so much to know and hear and learn.
Yeah. Another thing we did was brainstorm a list of people, like I was saying on those lists, that we thought we could lean on, who have specific skills. Maybe I shouldn't ask somebody to do something that anybody could do, like help me with dishes or laundry or driving, when they have amazing woodworking skills or home maintenance skills or cooking skills. You know, we had to install a bidet. We have to install handrails. I don't know how to do that. So if I make lists and think about using people specifically and well, that has improved our process.
Yeah, I know that was really. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Sorry. I also want Linda to feel comfortable with going away. So what I've done is I've sent emails to a group of friends who live locally and just say, hey, I'd like to have someone come over and give me a hand with things that I might need help with.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, so I get that completely. You know, help is it's very important, and people do want to help. So I know that, Linda, we were talking earlier and you were asking about, were there things that worked for my husband, Kevin, and me? And in the same realm, I found that having a meeting in the same way, like getting people together and asking them how they wanted to help, was wonderful. So give them a list of the options to choose from. The list, for example, picking up meds, dropping off dry cleaning, picking up children, making dinners and dropping them off, who can cut the grass, who can shovel the snow, and people with skills just really can make a huge difference. And sometimes, you learn about people's skills that you had no idea that they had.
Oh, right.
So you want to utilize a volunteer in a way that is comfortable for you both. Maybe someone doesn't want to do any personal care, which I had found to be true, but someone's happy to run errands, pick up prescriptions and food, those kinds of chores, right? Because ultimately, it gives you quality time with your loved ones and with your children because you're not being taken away to do those tasks.
And at the same time, I just would remind people to be sensitive to the needs of your friends and family, because there have been a couple of times when my sister, who's been in the middle of so much and has handled everything so gracefully, has just broken down. And I'm like, whoa, I wasn't ready for that. But then I step back and I say, oh yeah, this is her brother who's going through this. So she has her own emotional needs and responses, and I have to remember to be sensitive to those sorts of things. So was an important learning and very much an ongoing learning for me.
Yeah, everyone handles it differently. So that's a great point. Thank you. Having those sensitivities are especially important with children in our families. When I talk to parents, I suggest they try to be honest with their children and ask what do they need to know. And based on their maturity or age, you can keep them informed in a way that is appropriate for what they can handle.
Wow, Jodi, supporting young families can be such a tough part of this disease to navigate. I'm glad you're out there helping folks. So I'm curious if you're able to share your perspective and tools with any parents who may be joining us today. I mean, you've shared several, but are there other things?
Log back in.
Oh,
there you are.
Froze
Good. You froze for a second.
So and yeah, you froze.
Oh, okay. We all froze. Okay. So, yeah. So we were talking about the help for children.
Yeah, right? I asked you if you had any more thoughts for parents.
Yeah. So of course. So you know, I have spoken a lot to families all over the country, really, who are raising children while also facing ALS. I actually created a nonprofit that does just that, and it provides free resources to children across the country and gives them a chance to connect with other children, which is key, right? Not feeling alone. As a caregiver, I found some really helpful organizations as well. Obviously, you know, we have ALS Association, Team Gleason, ALS United chapter, Noon, the list goes on. Thankfully, there are a lot of groups out there nationwide. So I'm sure there are others that I haven't mentioned. I know I haven't. And we're lucky to have so many.
Those sound like a great starting place and some wonderful resources. Thanks, Jodi, for sharing those. I see them on the screen there.
Of course, my pleasure. And we'll leave this screen up for a few seconds more in case anyone wants to take a screenshot to capture all the resources that we've listed. I also wanted to thank you both so much for sharing your experiences with us today, for being mentors in this space. Your wonderful insights on how to build those strong support networks are so important when it comes to living with ALS, and really building a community of support can truly make this journey so much different. When you feel like you're being seen and heard and you have connections, it's really so much better, I think. So thank you both so very much for your time today. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us, and thank you to the whole ALS community, professionals and folks with ALS and caregivers. We have found the people in this community amazing.
It's been great to be together and have this discussion together.
I thank you both, and I agree this is the best compassionate community ever. So now let's open the floor to some questions. So if you don't mind hanging out a little longer. So in your opinion, how necessary is a live-in caregiver for those with ALS, especially after 3 or 5 years? Why or why not?
Well, That's a very personal question that's going to depend on the individual family and their financial resources. We have not had a live-in helper at this point, but we are thinking about what would be involved and thinking about having a place for someone to live if we do need to have someone to come in to help, and about the financial aspects of it. But it's so individual with so many different factors. So it's just not possible to give a simple answer to that. Do you have anything, Linda?
I do. One of the things that I've heard as a care partner is that sometimes other care partners have anxiety because the person with ALS, their partner, their parent, their child, really don't want that intimate support from anybody other than the primary care provider. And one of the things I appreciate about David is he doesn't want me to lose my life to just care for him. He wants me to have as much living as I possibly can, just as he right now is trying to have as much living, and he will till the end. But I appreciate that David says that we are going to be discussing what forms of help we're going to get and for how many hours, not just based on his needs, but on my needs for respite and independence, and to go out with my girlfriends and to continue the things that I love to do.
And I would add one more thing is that we have talked to people who say that being with their loved one is what they want to do. So this is Linda's personality and my personality, but other people are obviously going to approach things in different ways.
And again, it's just such a great reminder that communication is key. Talking about your individual needs and decisions together that you make together. So thank you for that. Next question, we have many. This is good. What have you found to be the single most important resource for someone who is newly diagnosed with ALS and is researching treatment options? Thank you.
I would say two. One is your local ALS organization, whether it's the ALS Association or a branch of the ALS United consortium outside the US. I don't know whether we have people outside the US, but there are other organizations in many other countries. So those are great resources for getting both online information, but also hands-on help in different ways. And then the website that I go to that I like is called ALS Untangled, and it has a lot of alternate sorts of potential alternate treatments with information about one group of professionals' assessments of their reliability, feasibility of being functional. But there's many other resources online that people can find.
Yeah,
I would just, sorry, Jodi.
No, go ahead.
I would just advocate for asking and re-asking and going to your medical team and going to a support group and asking questions. And we have been extremely fortunate that we feel like we have been able to get answers to our questions. But unfortunately, we do know people who just felt like they weren't learning at the beginning what was possible. And so I just really say, keep asking, knock on many, many, many doors, including other people with ALS who are farther on the journey.
Thank you both. And I'm fielding all these questions that are coming in, which is just incredible. I want to mention the International ALS Alliance is because we may have people calling in from other countries. So that covers the world ALS.
ALS MND, motor neuron disease.
Correct. So a question is, my husband was diagnosed 3 weeks ago. We have our first appointment at an ALS clinic next week. What are some good questions to ask? This is a great question.
Well, I'd like to reiterate to not go alone, to bring extra eyes and ears and paper to write on, because it is an overwhelming experience. David's sister kept reminding me to breathe in these appointments. So, David, more specifically, questions to ask?
I would certainly say whatever questions you ask, be prepared to ask them again, because you're going to forget the answer in the rush of information, or the answer is going to mean something different 6 months from now or a year from now, depending on where you are. I would ask about local support resources. I would ask them for any guidance about community support that they're aware of in your area, or online. I mean, the magic of today's world is that there's a lot of support groups that are available, and resources that are available, even if you're not in the same physical location. And beyond that, it's just hard to say, because as we've talked about before, everyone's case is unique. So the kinds of questions that you have are going to vary depending whether you're limb onset or bulbar onset, and whether you live in a large city or a small, or what how close or far your clinic is. So it's really hard to come up with a concrete list, but definitely, like Linda said, bring more than one person with you. Be prepared to write things down, and don't feel bad if you don't remember, because you won't. You'll remember some, and others you'll have to hear again.
I just want to add one thing that I do remember from that first meeting. And the neurologist said, after we were asked, we're big question people, the neurologist said, I can answer your questions, and I am, but things will not look the same to you at various stages. So the way ALS looks in your first appointment is not the same as it will down the road. So just know that your thoughts, feelings, emotions are going to evolve. And that has absolutely been true for us.
Definitely.
I appreciate that. And I'm just going to add to keep a binder, right? Put those questions and information in a binder. Have it in one spot. I still have ours. So thank you for that.
Mine's right up there.
Okay. How do you connect with the ALS community? Anything else in addition to what you've shared already?
For us, our first connection, as we said, was by going to a local ALS fundraiser walk. And I think that's a great way to engage a first time. You don't even need to be raising funds. You can just go and meet people and learn from the booths they have. Then from there, it really depends a lot on an individual's needs and sort of what they're looking for and how much energy they have. I really like the technical conferences, but I've always been a technically minded person. There are also just support groups and get-togethers, meetups of different kinds in different regions.
Webinars, educational webinars.
Lots of educational webinars.
With so many different topics. We have learned so much.
Just a quick question, do you do anything on social media that helps to keep you connected? I'm just curious.
I'm neither of us are very big social media people. I am on a Traveling with ALS Facebook group, and I think maybe another ALS Facebook group. And I've gotten some ideas from them periodically, and sometimes I'll answer people's questions that I have some experience with.
When we were doing things for the house, like the ramps and the grab bars, because we were ahead of time and we really didn't know anything, we asked a lot of questions of other people online. We didn't even know who they were, but people were super generous with their ideas.
This community is very generous, so thank you. Question, do you have any tips for someone just starting treatment with RADICAVA ORS?
The only thing that I have found helpful is to write in my calendar the necessary dates, because it's not an everyday application of the drug. I have put in my calendar for a year ahead, every fourth Tuesday to order it. And then I have in my calendar the Monday following that, a repeating appointment reminder in the morning to take the medication. And the way I do it is I have a couple of other meds I need to do on an empty stomach. So I get up and I take the meds and the RADICAVA ORS and the other meds. And then I either do some writing or I do some exercises. And an hour later, I come back and eat breakfast and the rest of my meds.
Excellent. And you're getting some legs are getting going up. So thank you for sharing that, keeping track of it. Have the resources you use now to learn more about ALS and available treatment changed at all from when you were first diagnosed?
It's hard for me to answer that because I don't know how much of the things that I'm leaning on now are things that I was then or knew about then, but didn't know how they'd fit in. I'm sure that things have changed in the same way my perspective and my expectations have changed. I'm sure that the resources I'm leaning on have changed because they're going to evolve with my own evolution. So Linda, I don't know if you had a different perspective on that.
One thing we didn't know at the beginning was that there seemed to be less things available for someone with slow-moving ALS than faster-moving ALS. And so I think David has less experience with those things than someone with a faster progression might. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. But
yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're just going to keep sharing all these wonderful questions. So thank you everyone for contributing. Do you have any tips? This is a tough one, how to talk to family or loved ones with ALS and the treatment you're taking?
All right, so I'm going to start with an anecdote on that one. When I was first diagnosed, and I was going down the list of symptoms for ALS and saying, oh yeah, that sounds like me, that sounds like me, that sounds like me. I wrote a letter, an email to my family, and I opened it up with, I'm pleased to announce that I know what's going on with me. And Linda, I always have Linda read over things like this. And she just looked at me like, are you kidding? Nobody is pleased to announce anything about this disease. But I also will say that the way I communicate with my side of the family is very different than the way I communicate with Linda's side of the family. My family is geeky and nerdy, and they like having resources and links and information. And Linda's side of the family, they're more about just the love. I mean, my family is loving too, but they're not interested as much in the details. They just want to know how we're doing, how they can help, where they can fit into the picture. So it is, like so many things, dependent on who you are and who they are. All right, I'm going to shut up now.
That's good.
Well, it goes back to, again, knowing who you are, knowing what you need and how to communicate all of that. So thank you.
I did periodically set up specific times when my family would get together, say at a holiday, to say, I would like to have a meeting on Tuesday from 1 to 2 so that I can give everyone a report on where I am right now and take their questions.
Excellent suggestion. Yeah. Zoom.
And he included the then teenagers and young adults, but we got a babysitter for the younger kids so that they would be out of the house during that very intense and real time with his siblings and his parents.
Excellent, excellent suggestion. Okay, so how far in advance, this is a question, do you get assistance? I've been diagnosed for 3 months and lost some function. I don't know how much time I have until I need more help.
I'll let you start with that one this time.
I think one of the things we learned early is that just as David's brain is not sending information well to his lower limbs, if he got injured, that information and that healing would be slow and broken process. So don't fall. Whatever you do, don't fall. So assistance to me means many things. It could be hired help. It could be somebody now living with you in the home. It could be a cane. It could be a walker. It could be a wheelchair. And we do everything early so that David's chance of falling and injuring himself is as small as we can make it.
And I follow the model of children's clothing that when a child is growing, you buy their clothing where the sleeve is too long, and then they grow into it, and then they outgrow it, and then you get the next one with the sleeve too long. I try always to be getting my assistive devices when I'm still here. I don't need it yet. It doesn't fit me yet. But by the time it fits me, I will have had a chance to practice it because it takes time. It took time to learn how to use the cane well. It really took some time to learn how to drive a wheelchair. I almost drove off curbs a couple of times and gave Linda heart attacks. Do that when you still have the facility to recover from the mistakes or to handle the complications that come up. So that, for me, it's always about getting it before you need it, when you haven't grown into the need yet.
And what we're doing with family and friends in assistance is we'll have them over and have them watch me do specific tasks with David while I'm there. I do it and then they do it, and then we do it again and again. And that's not a day where we're just leaving them. We're building their abilities because we're doing this stuff all the time. And how on earth would a person feel if something terrible happened? So, so bringing people in and letting them see under the veil of what the behind the scenes is like, so you can ask them. And then the same, we hired an OT, an occupational therapy student, to come and do some stretchings with David and some exercises with him. And the first couple sessions, it was mostly me and a little bit her. And now it's her and none of me, which is lovely.
We're so much alike in our thinking. Our kind of theme was hope for the best, plan for what you might need next, and prepare. So that's the way I thought about it. And also, we brought family members in and friends, and I taught them range of motion, massage, and because if you're sick and someone has to come in and help David, we all know that range of motion exercises make a huge difference, then someone else can do it. So thank you for that great suggestion, and we'll keep moving forward with these questions.
Can I add?
David has something.
One more thing
sure.
to that, which is that in certain situations, our community can involve total strangers. And it's taken me time to understand that it's okay to turn to someone and say, excuse me, can you help me pick this bag up or put this into the overhead compartment? And also to say, yes, please, when people see me struggling, and offer to help. So that's another area, like that's kind of the getting things early enough also, is that I may not need help with this thing today, but why not? It's easier.
Yeah, early on, we saw a couple out in the community when David had just been diagnosed, and the man was exceedingly impacted by whatever disease he had and really couldn't do much. And we were at an airport, and they had packed all this luggage. And this woman
they refused help.
This woman who did not look very fit and was not very young was managing her husband and all this luggage. And all these people were saying, "Can I put it on the shuttle for you?" No, I got it. And we looked at each other and said, that is not going to be us. Not going to be us. We're going to say yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
But it has been me. It's hard to remember to say that.
Mm-hmm. It is hard.
So this is going to be our last question because we're running out of time, but this has been amazing. The question is, can I take RADICAVA ORS and Riluzole together? And I'm going to answer that. Most people in the RADICAVA clinical trial were also taking Riluzole. But as always, you should talk to your doctor about the best treatment plan for you. So that's really important. I do want to remind you that we have the Journey Mate program also that you can look up, and that we also, this particular webinar will be available after today. So a video of the webinar will be posted on radicava.com, but not likely until June. So I thank everyone for joining today. I hope that this was helpful. Please stay tuned because we are going to run the additional information about RADICAVA for your information, and that may answer a few other additional questions. But thank you both for being here. I thank everyone who's joined us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jodi.
Thank you. Good.
Indication: RADICAVA ORS edaravone is indicated for the treatment of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. Important safety information: do not receive RADICAVA ORS edaravone if you are allergic to edaravone or any of the ingredients in RADICAVA ORS. Before you take RADICAVA ORS, tell your healthcare provider about all of your medical conditions, including if you have asthma, are allergic to other medicines, are pregnant or plan to become pregnant. It is not known if RADICAVA ORS will harm your unborn baby. Are breastfeeding or plan to breastfeed. It is not known if RADICAVA ORS passes into your breast milk. You and your healthcare provider should decide if you will receive RADICAVA ORS or breastfeed. Tell your healthcare provider about all the medicines you take, including prescription and over-the-counter medicines, vitamins, and herbal supplements. What are the possible side effects of RADICAVA ORS? RADICAVA ORS may cause serious side effects, including hypersensitivity or allergic reactions, and sulfite allergic reactions. Hypersensitivity reactions have happened in people taking RADICAVA ORS and can happen after your medicine has been taken. RADICAVA ORS contains sodium bisulfite, a sulfite that may cause a type of allergic reaction that can be serious and life-threatening. Sodium bisulfite can also cause less severe asthma episodes in certain people. Sulfite sensitivity can happen more often in people who have asthma than in people who do not have asthma. Tell your healthcare provider right away or go to the nearest emergency room if you have any of the following symptoms: hives, swelling of the lips, tongue, or face, fainting, breathing problems, wheezing, trouble swallowing, dizziness, itching, or an asthma attack in people with asthma. Your healthcare provider will monitor you during treatment to watch for signs and symptoms of all the serious side effects and allergic reactions. Common side effects reported include bruising or contusion, problems walking or gait disturbance, headache, and fatigue. These are not all the possible side effects of RADICAVA ORS. Call your doctor for medical advice about side effects. You may report side effects to FDA at 1-800-FDA-1088. You may also report side effects to www.fda.gov/medwatch or to Tanabe Pharma America Inc. at 1-888-292-0058. Please see the full prescribing information and patient information available at www.radicavaors.com.